All right, we are live. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to the Belief Breakthrough Show. We are actually live tonight. So if you have questions, if you have comments, if you want to be involved in this conversation, please jump on. Simply put it in the comments and we will add you to the show.
Cool.
Well, answer your questions. So here at the Belief Breakthrough Show, it is the month of November, and this month is all about self-love, how to take care of yourself, and what does self-love even look like? So many of us are so used to giving, giving, giving that we don't even know what that looks like anymore. And so we have the amazing opportunity to speak with Samantha Long tonight, who is a yoga instructor and an empowerment coach for women. She teaches us how to get back to our roots, how to dig deep into ourselves, fall in love with ourselves again, and be able to nurture ourselves before nurturing anyone else so we are not giving from an empty cup. So, with that, Samantha, can you tell us a little bit about what made you want to become a yoga instructor and how you intuitively fell into being that empowerment coach for women?
Yes. Hi. So, yeah, I'm so happy to be here. And by the way, so happy that this is live because I'm an open book, legitimately. Like, I love questions. So please, please ask away. Anyway, so I'll answer your question. Um, I was, I went through a major, major life transition about 5 years ago. And prior to that, I was already a practicing, yogi, whatever, yogini. And, but, not anything so serious. And what happened in my life was about when I was pregnant with my first child. I had been let go from my publishing career that I was in for probably about 12 years,
Wow.
8 months pregnant with my kid. So it was a major, major life shift. Like, not to go too deep into like that moment and the crazy, the anger, the bitterness, the sadness, the just insanity that
Mm-hmm.
ensued. But as you can imagine, it was not easy. Leaving the corporate arena, taking uh, taking that identity away from me as I'm trying to adjust to a new identity of being a mom for the first time. So I threw myself into yoga. It was already there in my life, but I knew just intuitively, like I knew that I needed to make it a much bigger part of my day to day life.
Mm-hmm.
And slowly but surely, once I did that, it worked. So yoga, right? Like, so yoga is, and when we talk about yoga, we're also kind of also talking about meditation, because even if you're talking about the physical practice of yoga linked with breath, it really is meditation in motion.
Right.
So you're pulling all of that together at once, the movement, the breath, and the actual clarity that comes from linking those together, which creates a meditation. So and you're really, the goal, and what ends up happening if done right, is you're kind of aligning it. Yoga means to yoke, right? To unite. So you're aligning and uniting your mind, body, and soul. Slowly over time, you incorporate that into your life. If you're well guided and well taught, you will start to connect with that inner voice, that
Mm-hmm.
person that, like, you've always really been, that you kind of forgot along the way, or you were taught you were supposed to be this way, you're supposed to look that way, you're supposed to go get a job for a big company and make lots of money and do this and that. You're supposed to, follow the rules, you're supposed to
Yeah.
stay in your
It
lane,
sets you
yada
away
yada.
from your alignment, right? All the
Right. It just
programming. Yeah.
draws you away from that person that you literally were always meant to be. So slowly but surely, in that part of my life, especially, really incorporating tons of yoga and meditation just to move through that major transition for me, it really started to become apparent that I wasn't going back to the corporate arena. I was prepared eventually to start to share this sort of the message that I got through this transformation with other women. Because I feel like, especially for moms, we are trying so hard to do just what we're supposed to do. We're trying not to mess up our kids. We're trying to make sure that our lives look like the other woman's life. We're trying to, yeah, we're trying to not repeat the same mistakes potentially our parents made. Like, you're
Mm-hmm.
trying so hard to create this perfect package and to live up to a certain standard. And that is wonderful. It's great to have that aspiration and to want to um want to do better for your family, perhaps, than what had gone in the past and things like that. But it's so much pressure as a mom, you have to take care of yourself. You have
Mm-hmm.
to fill your own cup. And it's funny because I don't think that I think that it's hard. I understand that it's hard to start prioritizing your self-care as a mom. Like, it's hard to set those boundaries, and it's hard. These are hard things to do, to incorporate time for yourself and really, make that happen. It is hard. It's not like it's easy. So but you do see the benefit fairly quickly. Like, like a little goes a long way. Like, if you were to take 3 times a week, you were to take 10 minutes to sit down by yourself and meditate, or just, get out to a yoga studio and go to a class or whatever it is, or
Mm-hmm.
take a virtual class. A little goes a long way. The reason is because you're sending a message to your mind and your soul. When you put yourself first, even if it's just for that short amount of time, you're sending a message to your brain that you matter, that
Right.
you actually matter more than whatever's going on upstairs or in the other room or whatever happened earlier in the day, that you matter. So, the mind will imitate what life illustrates, right? Like, sometimes you have to do it in order to prove to yourself how important and how much of an effect it will have on you.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was me. That was me about 5 years ago. I started to plunge back into yoga. I got back into music, which is something that, again, I always was into. I was always a singer and a songwriter. I didn't, I had to really work on building that confidence to even really be comfortable saying that out loud, let alone in singing in front of somebody, right?
Mm-hmm.
But again, forms of self-care that could help you love yourself more, that
Right.
could help you, that guide you to honor yourself, that
Mm-hmm.
person that you're supposed to be, that what
Right.
the essence that you're called to, that you're kind of ignoring because you're trying to do all the things somebody told you to do or that you're supposed to do. So
So
this is where I'm at now, is to get this
let's
out
touch on
there.
you dropped a lot of really good nuggets that I want to dive deeper
Yeah.
into. So the first part is the programming, right? Because as a child, we're kind of programmed to begin to live our lives the way that our parents or our guardians or whoever is bringing us up sees our life should be. Doesn't necessarily mean that that is aligned with our purpose when we come into this world, but they're the ones who we are looking to nurture us and bring us, like, really our entire life depends on our parents or our guardians, right? And so we have to comply or kind of absorb that training or that programming, that teaching of where they want our lives to head, right? In order to survive. But then that takes us out of that can, not always, but that can take us out of alignment of our true self. So as you become an adult and you're trying to fulfill the desires and the expectations of everybody that is looking to you to fulfill their expectations, like you said, it's draining, it's exhausting, it's hard. And we are in this world now where everyone is supposed to be this super person that can balance all of the balls in the air
Mhm.
and throw in a couple oranges, maybe a
Yeah.
couple
Oh
apples,
yeah.
maybe a couple knives and some fire flames and all this stuff. And you better
Oh,
make it all balance or you're a terrible person. So I love how you brought that up where you have to come into alignment, and yoga and meditation are amazing to do that.
right. And it's a part of the journey. I think that it's not something to say. Um, it's not something to give you anxiety or pause of, like,
Mm-mm.
what a well, how do I do, like, why did I come so far out of alignment, or what, well, why aren't I living, according to my purpose and my true nature. I think it's a part of almost everybody's journey
Mm-hmm.
to learn certain things and then unlearn them. And that's just the way it goes. And I love it. I love thinking about it like that too, because as you can imagine, I mean, my story, so what was I, 30 when all that went down? How old am I now? I've just turned 36. So, but it's one of those things where I really am just starting this sort of new venture, this new adventure. And so I think that comes into play too, is like, okay, well, why was I living so far out of alignment for so long? Was that a waste of time? No, I think it's everybody's journey to figure it out. And so, say you are 45, say you're 50, although I would love for the mommies out there to start taking care of themselves and start putting themselves first way sooner than that. But say,
Mhm.
you know, and that's kind of part of my message too. But say, you know, you're a mom of older kids, and now you get that nudge, right? Like, it's my
Mhm.
time now. You know, like,
Mhm.
I put them first, it's my time now. That's cool. I don't care how old you are, because guess what? That's your journey. You had to figure it out for yourself. At what point were you going to be able to say, you know what? I've always had this thing, and now I want to do it. Or I've always
Yeah.
had this, you know, whether it's start a business or whether it's paint, I don't care. But
Mhm.
do it, you know, these things. But there unfortunately is a lot in the way sometimes, and
Mhm.
there are some barriers to break down, there are some things to address, and a lot of it are those stories that come from the people in our lives. So, you know, the people of our authority figures, right? Our parents, could be our parents, our uncles, our cousins, whatever it is, you
Mhm.
know, family, friends, these are grandparents, and we give them their voices of authority when we're kids. So we give everything that they tell us we're supposed to do, we put it on a pedestal and we listen. And at the
Mhm.
same time, we're learning to people please at the same time. It's a lot, right? Um, but, you know, again, no shame in the game. It's just a matter of when you get to a point and you start to say, I feel like I'm unfulfilled. I don't like to say I'm unhappy or unsatisfied,
Mhm.
right? Because that that shit changes with every day, with every month.
With the
You know what I
flow,
mean?
with the
Like,
breeze.
yeah, I mean, come on. Are you fulfilled? Like, do you feel full? Do you
Mhm.
feel like you're living up to your potential, but in a light, like spiritually light sort of way, right?
Right.
um and so you start to, yeah, that's, I mean, at least for me, right, that was my one of my first steps, because one of the first times that I ever felt, oh, like, I think I really want to work with women directly on sort of getting past these barriers, was when I worked with my first coach. And one of the
Mhm.
first things that we talked about was limiting beliefs,
Mm.
things that,
Mhm.
stories, literally stories that you take,
Tell yourself, yeah.
tell yourself are truth all day,
Mhm.
every day. And then, and not until you just look at it dead on, name it, and break it down, do you realize, why am I walking with that as if it's a truth, when
Right.
really it's just that my aunt said it once.
Right. And it's so
Literally once.
funny how something so simple can be that.
Oh, forget
It
it.
could be you wanting to sing a song to your parents and you think that you're an amazing singer and they're like, "Wow, that really sucked."
Yeah. I
Didn't
mean, I'll
happen
tell
to
you
me,
a
but it's
story.
yeah.
No kidding. Like, I mean, the first time I used to sing in the living room, move the couches out of the way. I thought I was real special. And that's a whole nother discussion, right? Because, like, we actually are really, really all really, really special. But but yeah, I remember the first time I ever said, you know, Mom, I want to be a singer. Like, definitely. Like, I'm totally gonna be a singer. And she was like, you're gonna struggle and you're never gonna make any money. So I would
Ouch.
put that the F out of your head. Like, how about that? Now, so what happens then? What happens then when I face that dead on, right? I say to myself, man, she threw me right off my path. Threw me right
Mhm.
off my path. Am I angry? Probably a little for a moment, right? But the reality is, then we have to look at the idea of, were these people trying to throw you off? Are they trying to make you unhappy, or have you live a less fulfilled life? No, most people are, and regardless whether it's somebody of authority, a parent, or whether it's just a random person, most people will say things like this just because it's their own fear.
Right.
So
And
especially if
it's
it's a
their
parent,
own opinion.
right, it's about their own stuff. And so
Mhm.
especially if it's a parent or somebody of authority or a relative in your life, they probably are scared for you. They want you to succeed. They don't want to see you fail. So it's really out of love.
Mhm.
But so, you know, like, as a, you know, and because I work with moms, so as a parent, I always try to keep that in mind with my kids. But it's so funny because it's like, so, like, it ends up being like a situation where I'm just like, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to do is great. You know, like,
Right.
anything.
Let Let's also touch on comparison because you also brought up the fact that as a mom, and many of us are moms out there, we like to compare ourselves to everyone else. And we see these super moms that can work a full time job, manage a household, run a side gig, and still have time to do their hair, nails, makeup, and look perfect when they step out of the house. And we're like, and we're supposed to live up to that. I can't even bathe myself, let alone get my child dressed for the day and out of diapers and maybe food in their belly once or twice. Like,
Totally.
and we compare ourselves, and because we can't meet up to that unrealistic expectation for us, right? It might not be unrealistic for them, but it's unrealistic for us. Then we put that negative story in our head that we're a terrible person, we're a horrible mom, we don't deserve to have kids, and all this BS.
Mm.
And we put that story on repeat. But the problem is not only does that tear us down, but it also empties our well. So we have nothing left to give to those people around us. And we end up taking from them too, because we need that energy. And
Yeah,
so let's talk about the thief of joy, which is comparison. I truly believe
totally.
comparison is the thief of joy. And right now in the world we're in, there's no joy. We can't afford to be comparing ourselves to anyone else, because we need to keep all the joy that we have, and stop comparing ourselves, stop putting that negative story in our minds,
Yeah.
and stop over stressing our already stressed person.
Right. You're making it, yeah, we make ourselves crazy. And it's yeah, exactly. I mean, you could say something simple, right? Like, hey, like let's just be more kind to ourselves. But or just stop comparing yourself to other people. And there's a lot of like self-development stuff, personal development stuff out there right now that will just simply say that. And it kind of bothers me
Mm-hmm.
because it's so much deeper than that. It's not about stop comparing your day-to-day life to somebody else's highlight reel, which sucks because I mean it's true.
That's what it is.
Social media really does have that effect, right? Like you're not seeing somebody's life, you're not seeing somebody's real life. Also, if you see the woman, and this is not saying anything about somebody who likes to keep themselves really well kept and like well kept and like hair did, nails did, all of it. I'm so not that person. Like I don't even know the last time I had my nails done because for me it's about that. I'm not going my self-care regimen, my self-care routines do not include getting my hair did, getting my nails did, getting a pedicure, getting a facial. They do not require, they do not come into that because I have to go deeper. So if I'm having a week where I've got that negative self-talk in my head, which
Mm-hmm.
of course I still battle that, like, I'm like, I always say this, like, there's never like this point where it's just poof, all of these anxieties and struggles go away. No, you just learn how to work through them,
Right.
more purely. But if I'm having a week like that, I need to journal. I don't need to go get my hair and my nails did to compare and to look more like Susie
Mm-hmm.
Q. I gotta sit down and write my thoughts down. What's really at the root of why I have a lack of confidence? Or and then there's also talking about sort of growth or sort of personal development stuff. It's like we are gonna have those days where you know saying I have these days all the time where I'll say I wasn't the best mom today. I really wasn't. I yelled, I flew off the handle, I freaking lost it. I wasn't actually, I'm pretty sure one of that was today. um but we have to like we have to make sure that you said negative self-talk, we have to make sure that we're not shaming ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite authors is Brene Brown, and she talks a lot about shame versus guilt.
Mm-hmm.
So, in other words, guilt is, mom guilt is harsh. We all know that. So we're literally talking about it right now, like feeling like we haven't done enough, right? Or that we can't put ourselves first because we're supposed to put our children first every single step of the way, right? But, guilt is more like I did something wrong, quote, wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Shame is like I am wrong.
Right.
And that's when it gets out of hand. And that's
Mm-hmm.
when you will lose control of your ability to differentiate between that person's highlight reel in your life, to differentiate between what is real and what is just like somebody selling you something,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's when you'll start to beat yourself up. We have
Right.
to learn. So it's really not like just stop comparing. It's like relearn, unlearn all of that shame and relearn how to really love yourself.
Right.
And I swear, I really truly believe the only way to do that is through acts of self-care. And it's going to be
Mm-hmm.
different for everyone. Like I said, for me, it would be, I would really need to get my thoughts out on paper,
Mm-hmm.
and I would need a lot of breath,
Yeah.
you know?
Yep.
But,
I
but yeah, it's getting to the root, right?
It is. And
It's
that's
like
the
treating
issue is,
the actual root and not the symptom.
yeah, a lot of people don't understand that, getting to the root. Um, and for me, I know I spent, shoot, like 34 years really doing the shame. I'm ashamed of who I am.
Yeah.
I'm embarrassed to speak my truth. And I can't even be aligned with my truth because I'm so ashamed of it. And it took a lot of work. I literally turned my journal into my book. It was published in March, called Stuck in
So
the
good.
Fire. And it was all about going into that shame, going into that blame, going into that disgust of self, and really picking apart what I call the pain nuggets. Where is my heart broken? When I think about this memory, am I shattered? If I'm shattered, I need to go in and I need to revisit it and explore it and go, why did I feel this way? Where's my responsibility so I can start forgiving myself in that area? And I
Mm,
think a lot of that root is the need for forgiveness, not for others. We prefer to point the finger at others and say, this is your fault, this is their fault, and it's everyone else's fault for my pain and my shame and my blame. But when we can turn the finger inwards and go, I have a responsibility here, and figure out where that responsibility lies, and you can begin to forgive yourself. And once you begin to forgive yourself, you can begin to rebuild yourself.
yeah, 100%. It's like, you know, you saying that made me think of like a couple stories on my end. You know, like I mentioned about leaving the corporate arena, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until after I had left and removed myself from that I realized like just how unnatural that actually the grind was for me. The
Mm-hmm.
anxiety of always having to one up either yourself or the other person, um, and always having to deliver. And it's kind of crazy because it wasn't until I left that I realized how, you know, like sort of toxic that was for my
Mm-hmm.
life and
Yeah.
unnatural. And so when you put yourself, you know, back in that, you start to realize, you know, like you know, you're talking about like pain nuggets. I would, once I started to really unravel that persona that I had kind of put together because of my corporate career and because that was the whole identity that I put myself into before I had my kids. Once I started to unravel that, I also realized that because you're not really free in an environment like that to just like share your ideas, right?
You
Like you
can't.
can't just walk into a meeting and be like, yo, guys, like I have this nugget right now. Like, no, there are not only procedures to go through, but there's about 9 people in your way who are going to say, you're way too outside the box. Like they say, think outside the box, but ain't nobody thinking outside the box. They want you to do exactly what worked last year, but tweak it a little bit. That's it. Right.
Yeah.
So you don't have that ability, like your total, that corporate mentality just contains your creative nature completely. You lose it. And I remember actually feeling that, like knowing, right,
Mm-hmm.
that it was going, that creative inspiration, you know, inspired feeling, energy was going and leaving me. And
Mm-hmm.
I had always been the other way. I had always, like, I was in drama, I sang, da da da. I had this, all this sort of in me, and it was going. And I worked in
Mm-hmm.
publishing. Like, I should be able to be
Very
frosted,
creative.
right? But
Yeah.
like, no. So I remember thinking, well, shit, like that was so like just stifled. And
Mm-hmm.
you don't really, sometimes you don't see it until something happens to shake up your
Yes.
life a little bit, right? So but yeah, that's what came up for me when you were talking about sort of, you know, yeah, being able to, you know, I was just, in retrospect, that's what, how it was for me.
Right. Absolutely. So we're coming on to our end of the time. So let me ask you your top three self love activities that you do when the negative self-talk is coming in, the comparison is taking over, and your mind is spinning out of control. What are your top three go-to? If I do these three things, I can come back into my present moment and start to heal the wounds that are starting to open up.
Hmm. they change. But the one thing that is constant is that I use breath to gain clarity and maintain sort of composure all day long, every day. And I have to say this, like, I'm not like, so I'm, yes, I'm a yoga instructor, but there's probably plenty of more education and research that I can do on breathing exercises and pranayama and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But this happens naturally for me now because I've incorporated so much of it into my life.
Right.
And so I'll be in like a very tense moment, and it comes naturally to me to come back to my breath, very deep inhale through the nose, full, complete, full, extended exhale, right? And you really, it makes a massive difference because all of that breath is for clarity of mind mostly. It's detoxing, it's
Mm-hmm.
regulating your nervous system, and it literally will create clarity in your mind. So I would say that that's number one. And then, like, right now, I'm just like kind of playing with oracle cards.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, you know, like little other things will come in. Like, I have these oracle cards that have like very powerful messages, and I will sit here in my little sacred spot and maybe meditate for like 5 minutes, and then I'll pull a card, and it's just like, okay, I'm not saying that like some spirit, you know, floated down and like put my hand on that card, like, I mean, but when I do this, there is always a message that comes up that I can then sort of intuitively translate into, oh, I understand what this is trying to tell me. This is
Mm-hmm.
a way for me to reconnect, even if it's just simply for me to connect with that inner voice for a few minutes down here in my little space right across from the laundry where I belong. um, but this, so the space, right? That's that I would say is one more thing, is having this space where I can come, that's only mine in this big house, just this space. But I need that. It's a little sacred
Mm-hmm.
space for myself. I need that.
Absolutely. So before we wrap up, if people are like, wow, I need to get a little bit of Samantha in my life, where can they find you?
So find me on Instagram. It's at the underscore aligned underscore heart. So that's my company. That's my, you know, my service, my offering is aligned heart, aligned heart LLC. And I also have my own show. So if you're interested in checking that out, it's Self Care is My Job. So I named it that specifically because it's like, it is my job, but it's also your job, and it's everybody's job. Ain't nobody else doing it for you.
Mm-hmm.
So I have another, you know, that's on YouTube as well. So that'll be fun if anybody wants to check that out. But this was great.
Awesome. You guys, thank you so much for tuning in tonight and watching. If you are needing a little bit of energy in your life and you're needing to realign to be aligned with your true self, I just launched my re-energized course. And you can go and get it on tinaencarnacion.com or Healing by Tina. And it teaches you all about meditation, how to run your energy, how to use the energy of the earth to heal your physical, mental, and spiritual bodies, as well as crystal work and EFT tapping. So again, if you need to re-energize, realign, go grab that course at healingbytina.com. And we will see you on the next one. Oh, on Wednesday, we are going to have Rochelle Henderson on the show as our guest. And she is an amazing woman who is the founder of the nonprofit um, Beautifully Created. And she is a powerhouse of energy and spark, and we will have her on Wednesday. So we will see you guys next week, or I'm sorry, in 2 days.